The world is changed. I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth. I smell it in the air. Much that once was is lost, for none now live who remember it.
Psst. Hey, buddy. Do you like strategic gameplay? Do you like grand-scale confrontations? Do you like an engaging storyline? Or how about
kings, queens, dragons, dwarves, horses, fortresses, magic, and
some guy named Roland? Then oh boy, do I got something that you're gonna love. Heroes of Might and Magic 2 was released in 1996, and its expansion, The Price of Loyalty, was released just 1 year later. It released to critical acclaim and was nominated for several awards, ultimately falling just short of the grand honor to the likes of milestone games like Civilization 2 and Command & Conquer Red Alert. But let's be real, if you come in second to Civ 2 or Red Alert, that's not a slap in the face, that's an honor. But exactly why am I talking about a game from 1996? I mean, that was 26 years ago. In the last few years, a small group of dedicated individuals have worked to lovingly restore this titan, a giant upon whose shoulders others have stood upon. From the GitHub description, fheroes2 is a recreation of the Heroes of Might and Magic 2 game engine. The open-source multi-platform project written from scratch is designed to reproduce the original game with significant improvements to gameplay, graphics, and logic, including support for high-resolution graphics, improved AI, numerous fixes, and user interface improvements, breathing new life into one of the most addictive turn-based strategy games. The scope of the project is massive, but it is an undersell to say that they are simply breathing new life into Heroes 2 as if it were dead. No. Instead, they have awoken a dormant power that has been ever present, but waiting, silently, to be unleashed upon the world anew. That is to say, it was always good, but now it's better than ever. But I'm getting ahead of myself. What is Heroes of Might and Magic? The series is essentially turn-based strategy, empire building, exploration, and resource management with a heavy emphasis on combat and conquest. Heroes 1, 2, and 3 take place in the land of Enroth, a fantasy medieval setting with knights, barbarians, sorceresses, necromancers, warlocks, and wizards, among other factions. You command your armies through the use of heroes, mobile commanders of immense might and magic who venture forth with your armies to battle neutral enemies, claim the land's many resources, and work logistically to leverage the advantages you find against your opponents in combat. While somewhat straightforward in the sense that the goal is often to claim all the enemy's land and slaughter any opposition, there is a tremendous amount of nuance in how you do so. Niche tips and tricks may vary from game to game in the series, but the general principles of success focus on developing your fighting force and the hero that leads them. Effectively master the elements found in battle, the adventure map, and among your towns and heroes, and you may very well get to stand up and say,
"Just come on back if you ever want to try again. I done told you once, you son of a bitch, I'm the best there's ever been."
Per the title, there are both heroes of might and magic. As your hero grows in power, so too will your armies, whether by your hero directly augmenting your army's combat stats or by unleashing devastating spells upon the battlefield to aid your allies or wreak havoc amongst your foes. While Heroes of Might and Magic 1 did not feature much by way of individual hero customization, Heroes 2 and beyond began implementing a system by which heroes must pick and choose where to apply their talents. This skill tree could be made manifest by providing adventure map bonuses such as increased movement per turn, increasing the hero's magical aptitude and ability to cast spells, or some other meaningful, theoretically meaningful bonus. Once you complete your scenario objective, you win. Rinse and repeat. It may sound silly, but the gameplay loop for all Heroes games are surprisingly addictive because simple choices compound on themselves synergistically to create a greater whole than the sum of its parts. Now, that's just a complex way to say that it's simple, but it can have significant depth to master. As you get better at the game, you get more enjoyment because you see the cause and effect of your choices play out before you. And because it's a turn-based strategy game, you see these choices unfold at a pace that you can parse at your own leisure. This inherently makes each game you play its own little story. When thinking about the narrative from game to game, the quote from Shakespeare comes to mind. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. I think that this is the appropriate lens to view a Heroes game with, knowing that while your goal is to achieve victory, the real prize is the story that we enjoyed along the way, through thematic elements and a steadily unfolding adventure that the player controls. Losing your main hero in Week 3 wasn't a tactical failure, it was setting the backdrop for your massive comeback. After all,
the greater the struggle, the more glorious the triumph.
See, I would argue that the charm found in the game through descriptive texts and world building is just as much a reason to play as the tactical and strategic components, of which there are many. Now, I'm getting lost in the weeds here, but hopefully you understand my point, that the gameplay loops found in the Heroes series are both tactical and thematic. It's worth noting that even for a series as old as it is, the Heroes franchise has stayed incredibly relevant. I hate to use the term cult classic because, in my mind, it implies that the media in question might be whatever word you think fits best here. But I will use the term cult classic, in the sense that diehard fans of the game will defend it to the death, or at least whichever iteration in the series is their favorite. The war rages on, and the discussions online can be heated about the merits of each game, the reasons one iteration in the series is the best. Wait. There we go. And it has generated some hilarious examples of online activity. I mean, look at this guy. To be honest, we should honor his willingness to say what's in his heart. Moving on. The general consensus online is that Heroes 3 is the best in the series, then either Heroes 2 or Heroes 5. I'm going to avoid talking about any particular game in terms of better or worse. Instead, I will try and focus on why someone's choice might be their favorite. I have used the term iteration to describe each Heroes game so far, and allow me to explain. In my eyes, Heroes of Might and Magic 1 was ambitious for the time, but needed a ton of work. It was a spin-off from King's Bounty, an RPG-style game, and it improved upon the concepts present in those games while elevating you to the position of commander of your armies. But it really needed a little more time to stew and become what Heroes eventually could be, which is why I discuss Heroes games in terms of being iterations. You had Heroes of Might and Magic, a strategic quest that laid the blueprint for every game after it. Build towns, develop armies, send them across the map, and win. There were several opportunities that were missed, but it was fine as a working game, and it even tied for Game of the Year from 2 separate publications. But then Heroes of Might and Magic 2 came out and improved on every aspect of that new style. All of a sudden you have heroes who are compelling in the sense that they can grow along with you as the scenario develops. The battle map was increased to provide more opportunities for tactical gameplay, and the amount of creatures in the game went from 28 creatures in 4 factions plus neutral creatures, all the way up to 45 creatures across 6 factions with neutral creatures in Heroes 2. It was the same Heroes formula, but it was a vastly different gaming experience. Then, from Heroes 2 to Heroes 3, we have an explosion of refinement. To ignore it would be disingenuous, even though my obvious opinion, is that I prefer Heroes 2, particularly the Heroes 2 version, over any other. But the leap from Heroes 2 to Heroes 3 was not as shocking of a different gaming experience as it was from Heroes 1 to Heroes 2. It felt like the same game, just more. Compared to Heroes 2, there's just more. More units, more adventure map objects, more artifacts, more heroes, more content, more everything. Changes include a new art style, 78 unique creatures, all faction creatures including an upgraded version of themselves, 9 different factions, an expanded hero speciality tree, and tons more. But again, it's the same game. Heroes 1 to Heroes 2 is a different game, but between Heroes 2 to Heroes 3? Or from Heroes 3 to Heroes 4? Or from 4 to 5? There's differences to be sure, but you know you're playing a Heroes of Might and Magic game. This isn't going from Duke Nukem to Half-Life in the first-person shooter genre. Heroes is the genre, and because it's so iconic, maybe it's hard for any one game to really distance itself from the others. So, if they are all the same game, just with more or less or different elements, you can start to see how it leaves room for a host of valid opinions as to which is someone's personal favorite. This somehow turned into something of a love letter to the Heroes of Might and Magic series, but let's focus up. What can you expect from fheroes2? Just to be clear, this is Heroes of Might and Magic 2, but it has never felt so good to settle in for a fun afternoon. The most glaring issues with the original Heroes 2 game are being revisited, reworked, and ultimately brought into accordance with what we might expect from a game released in the mid-2000s, yet retaining all of its original charm and soul. Somehow, fheroes2 is in a better spot than some games released by AAA publishers. Let's waste no more time and talk about all the features and changes. fheroes2 can be played in so many different resolutions, which for me allows me to enjoy the game and spend less time scrolling and more time taking in the beautiful adventure map. I mean, look how pretty this is. The game was already wonderful to look at, and this lets you take more of it in at the same time, and that's gotta have some tactical advantage as well. Configuration settings are accessible in-game and at the main menu. This includes resolution changes on the fly, but also access to a list of basic hotkeys and the option to rebind them yourselves. There were some important hotkeys in the original Heroes 2, but I never knew what they were as a kid because there wasn't something like this that could help you figure out what they even were. You can also use the configuration settings to play Heroes 2 in up to 21 different languages, insofar as I am aware, each of which was translated by a native or a fluent adjacent speaker. In campaigns, you can right-click to see what the bonuses or rewards are for that scenario. You can get additional information on certain spells for things like damage or special interactions. When you level up, you can view your hero's stats to help you make the best decisions. Several adventure map objects will show relevant information in the pop-up window, like gold in the treasury or experience to get to the next level. The status for adventure map objects is updated weekly to indicate things like skills available in a witch's hut or spells to be learned at a shrine, not to mention weekly visits to the windmill are kept track of. The turns it takes to reach a spot on the adventure map with the hero now will detail how many days it will take, up to 7 days. Save file information has been revamped, including showing the date of the last overwrite of that save, and you can right-click to get additional information such as where the game was saved, the game's progress in months, weeks, and days, and the scenario or the map name. You can split stacks of creatures by using Ctrl, Shift, or Alt to break off single stacks, to quickly split a stack in half, to evenly split stacks, or to bring all stacks back together. There are buttons to move all troops or all inventory items quickly from one hero to another. The creature counters for each stack are larger and more legible. The Town Portal spell has improved UI so that you can navigate to your desired town quickly. And scroll bars are adaptive to the amount of items in that bar. There is a toggleable display for turn order in battle, and a toggleable display for damage calculations. This is one of my favorites. You have an instant battle option to auto-combat fights, with the option to restart the battle in manual mode if you do not like those results. Along with this, you can finish a battle automatically from any point in a current battle. The mass spells now have distinguished icons. Any unique or special characteristic a unit might possess is listed under their portrait, and spell effects can be noted on any affected creature, and the remaining spell duration is noted in battles. Movement shadows have been updated, including exactly what spaces a 2-tile creature will occupy upon movement. Any creature with a double hex attack will now highlight the affected squares. You can check your hero stats, their inventory, and whatever troops you had before that battle started while in combat. Area of effect spells now have an appropriate effect area shadow, and the same goes for the Lich's cloud attack ability. I didn't see this change anywhere in the logs, but I also noticed that when you surrender and you're short on gold, you now have the option to go to your marketplace and trade resources for the gold necessary to ransom your hero. You can recruit either the base level creature or its upgrade very easily. You can now view your kingdom's income while in a town. You can make purchases from the well, whereas before you had to buy units from each individual dwelling. Plus, there's now a buy all function. Clicking on a dwelling will automatically assume that you want to buy all the creatures in that dwelling instead of making you click through to the max. You can press the down arrow key to move all troops from the garrison to your visiting hero. Any stack of creatures that is currently selected will now have a glowing outline for clarity. There is now a shadow on the spellbook. There's a new icon for the Medusa's petrification ability. When selecting a new scenario, there are new icons to differentiate at a glance between the base and expansion maps. You can now select a difficulty for the campaigns and change it from scenario to scenario. You can now see the numeric amount of movement points your hero currently has and how many they will have at the beginning of next turn if their army does not add a slower creature. Music in your towns will pause until you return, rather than stopping and starting from the beginning each time you return. There have been a whole host of changes to previously misrendered items in the game, more accurately reflecting now the original intent of the artists and game designers. If you are like me, you might be floored by the time and energy it obviously took to rebuild fheroes2 from the ground up, and you may be intrigued by what might come next. That will be for a later video and another day, or you can hop on the links in the description to check it out for yourself. But there's still one aspect of the rebuild that we must talk about, for any hero knows that their story will only be as good as their villain, or in this case, the AI. The AI is a particular point of interest for Heroes2 enthusiasts because it is the de facto way of playing. Sure, you can load up a game of Hot Seat or fire up the old Game Ranger to try and play with friends and family, if you have any that are willing to play with you, but the majority of Heroes2 is played against the AI. Now, I am not a programmer or a game designer, but I do have about 1,500 hours in Factorio, so that's got to count for something. Anyways, I would be absolutely overwhelmed with the prospect of building an AI, but I am very interested in how it works. According to Zents, an fheroes2 team member, the AI uses heuristics, or a weighted number system, to prioritize certain objects on the map, tactics on the battlefield, or choices to make in any given situation. I imagine that is a very simplified explanation, as he does put it, but it is the most encouraging thing to me when it comes to the AI and the health and robustness of said AI. Good game design doesn't get it right the first time, and you need many levers to pull and adjust to test and get things right as you get feedback and greater insight into what kind of monster you've created. Looking back over the last couple of years, it's nice to see some people originally disparaging the AI online, saying that it was too dumb or too weak. Fast forward to now, and you have people saying more and more that it is incredibly competitive, or in some cases, too strong. It is worth noting that the original scenarios and campaigns for Heroes of Might and Magic 2 were designed with the original AI in mind, often giving the computer overwhelming forces to compensate for the weak AI. But don't worry, there is the easy, medium, and hard mode difficulties for the scenarios and the campaigns as previously mentioned. But take on those original maps and put them with the current AI, and you will have to be quite cunning indeed to overcome it. My point in talking about all this is that the process is working, at least from what I can see. When asked for his thoughts on the AI on the fheroes2 server, Dranik, one of the initial fheroes2 team members, says, "In battles, AI performs relatively average. In 65% of cases, AI makes proper and adequate decisions. On the adventure map, AI lacks a significant amount of tactical mechanics and flexibility. I consider it as working for about 40% only." For anyone with the hubris to think that they can challenge a fully optimized AI, this should be an absolutely terrifying statement. I do not anticipate that the AI will reach stockfish levels of AI like you would find in chess, because there are so many more variables, but it is apparent to me that the AI is good and getting better all the time. Let me show you two examples that I thought were particularly interesting from the fheroes2 AI that I encountered in my playthroughs. But we're going to do it. That's probably my best bet. 5 to 10. Lose another one of those. Now I'm blocked off because of my poor planning. I did not think that they would use that one gargoyle to come off the Orc Chieftains to allow the Orc Chieftains to do a full damage. Look at that. That was genius. You bring the one gargoyle off to block me away from you. That was really well done. That was really well done. 10 to 13. In this clip, we see the gargoyles correctly prioritize damage threats. The AI does its best to win every fight, and rarely do you see it trying to simply do as much damage as it possibly can. This move was completely counterintuitive to what the original AI would have done, which placed the highest priority on ranged creatures, all else be damned. This was a high-level example of correct play, in my opinion. And let's see what the enemy does here. He pushes into the town. Not a bad decision. Just in case. What was that? What are you doing? What are you doing? That's just dumb. That's just dumb. What are you doing? Bro, excuse you? But that is the dumbest decision I've ever seen in my life. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. Makes zero sense. Yeah, if you go that far to get a town, you better see that thing through. And don't tell me that that dissuaded you from taking that. And don't tell me that Luna pushing into your territory is making you rethink that either. We're going to just push and wait. Everybody else is just going to wait. Yeah, what are you doing? Here, we see the AI getting caught between shifting priorities. They rush towards the minimally defended town only to turn away when another priority outweighs that victory, only to turn back after other threats and priorities have been resolved. A human decision would say, I will deal with these other threats when I can, but for now, I might as well take out this town that I went one whole extra day out of my way to get. If you feel like I was being very critical of the AI in that last clip, don't worry. I can be both complimentary and critical of the AI, and the reason I can do so is because it is held up repeatedly to the intense scrutiny that I have put on it over the Roland and Archibald campaigns. Although it may be worth being kind just to make sure that we don't poke the devs into unleashing some sort of doombot mastermind upon us all. Maybe that's the worst case scenario, but I just can't afford the risk. I know this video is getting long, but I do want to take one more moment of your time and do a side-by-side comparison that you might find interesting. Let me just pull up our interface here. Okay, so we have fheroes2 on the left and Heroes of Might and Magic 2 Gold Edition on the right, and we can use this to discuss the similarities and differences between the two AIs. Spoiler alert, there are more differences than similarities. Starting off, we have both boars going across the battlefield. I consider this the best decision. We then have both top stacks of druids attacking the Archmagi. Conventional wisdom points to this being the right decision, and especially so when you consider that the Archmagi have the highest attack skill of any creature on this battlefield and will pound for pound do the most damage. We have our first deviation. The fheroes AI targets the largest stack of druids that has not yet gone, while the Gold AI attacks the topmost stack of druids even though they have taken their turn this round of combat. From a DPS standpoint, this is a failure by the Gold AI because it prioritizes attacking from top to bottom, while the fheroes AI is prioritizing according to threat and turn order. Advantage, fheroes2. Another deviation. fheroes2 AI attacks the rocks, while the Gold AI relentlessly bombards the Archmagi. These 4 attacks from the Gold Druids drop the Archmagi stack down to 8, doing a total of 127 damage, but note that they had a whole extra 5 Druids because of the previous AI decision. Meanwhile, the fheroes AI split their shots, taking 1 freebie Archmagi and otherwise pouring damage onto the rocks, doing a total of 105 damage. This may seem like an obvious blunder. Most players would rather lose 1 rock and 1 Archmagi over losing 4 Archmagi. But in the sense that the fheroes AI is playing to win, I can see it making sense. The rocks have a lower defense than the Archmagi, and are an immediate threat that must be dealt with, so any damage on them will not be wasted. It's the reason why sometimes you prioritize a swarm of centaurs over 5 black dragons. The black dragons may be the biggest threat, but we can more readily reduce the stacks and have a greater effect with our turn by decimating the weak but valuable centaurs. Plus, it's worth noting that the last rock has 2 hit points remaining. It's an example of a more flexible AI, and if the fight wasn't overwhelming, I think you might see this strategy pay off better. And remember, the gold AI has 5 more druids. As it is, advantage to the hero's gold. Note that we now have split troops to deal with. It is always best to jam up or encumber ranged troops so that they do reduce damage on the melee attack, plus they do not threaten your backline anymore. In this instance, it looks like the hero's gold is in a better position to encumber its remaining uncovered opponents, but the fheroes2 made the decision that led to taking less damage overall in the previous turn, and its halflings have yet to go this round of combat. You did what? I don't have to explain this. Going into a defensive position is a tried and true tactic, but against exclusively ranged AI troops, this decision is baffling from the gold AI. The F-Heroes goblins are probably not going to get into this fight before the battle ends, but they have the right idea, and if you're wondering, the F-Heroes AI does a great job of defending its ranged troops at appropriate times, and this just tells me that it knows which is when and when is which. Huge advantage to the F-Heroes AI. The halfling decision is very interesting. The gold AI chooses the largest stack of shooters in order from top to bottom. In this case, it's the already encumbered stack trying to deal with the rocks. When there are 2 unencumbered druids remaining, this is clearly a poor decision and will ultimately lead to 5 extra druids attacking the Archmagi down the road. Meanwhile, the fheroes2 correctly prioritizes the largest unencumbered stack of creatures. The tactical flexibility is owning this battle, advantage fheroes2. Druids on both sides make the best decisions. 1 more Archmagi goes down on the fheroes2 side. You could argue it was luck, but it seemed a fair calculation to hope for enough damage to even the score between the AIs. Back to the boars. It seems apparent to me in all my fheroes2 experience that the boars would have encumbered both bottom stacks of druids if they could. That's what I would have done. But due to terrain that the gold AI did not have to deal with, they couldn't. Interestingly, despite there not being that concern with terrain, the gold AI did not jam up both shooters. I don't get it, but then again, I suppose I don't have to. Whatever, fheroes2 advantage, game, set, match. The battle is pretty straightforward from here. Heroes Gold AI loses 4 Archmagi and 1 boar, while the fheroes2 AI loses 2 rocks and 2 Archmagi. The first deviation was the biggest, by mitigating damage from 5 whole additional druids, and ultimately I think that the fheroes2 player AI earned the right to lose 2 less Archmagi. You want my opinion? I said it already, but I will say it again. The AI for fheroes2 is good and getting better, and it seems that it is even getting appropriately difficult for the easy, medium, and hard difficulties as well. I truly believe that the AI is one of the best selling points of the fheroes2 game, and while it will be frustrating for longtime fans of the series to have those moments where years of experience and expectations are working against them because of the new AI, I would encourage people to think of it more in terms of different, rather than better or worse than the original AI.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.
This was a triumph. I'm making a note here, huge success. It's hard to overstate my satisfaction.